We have lots of room in the front. Lots of, look, Matt is all alone in the front. Everyone say hi, Matt. See, you do have friends. Yeah. Inside joke, you hear more about it on Wednesday and exactly how many friends Matt does have. How many people here tweet? Are Twitter, whatever, I don't know what I call you people. Twits? Tweeps? All right, that was funny. Here, I'm going to give you a shirt. But I'm not going to come to you. You're going to come get my... All right, there you go. See, it's interactive session, right? Okay, so I have a favor to ask of all you tweeps. I got that right? Tweeps. Okay, so what I want you to do is the session code is what? You are where? Yes, you are at TechEd. You've already got a prize. DBI 209. All right, give this man I got you a button. There you go.
Big prizes on the button.
Big button. Oh, okay, you can have the button. Okay, so hashtag DBI 209. Oh, look at that. Okay, here you go. Hashtag DBI 209. Okay. I want you guys who, if you Twitter and tweet and do that thing. Use hashtag DBI 209. But I want you to use this dictionary of words. Okay, you can...
Preferably the upper half of that dictionary.
Yeah, preferably the upper half. But, you know, it's a democracy, so you get to choose which half you want to be in. But use any of those. You say whatever you want, but use one of those words or symbols as you do that. If you choose nothing, that's fine too. You know, you have that choice. But that's my ask of you. Okay, and then all will be revealed at the end if the experiment works. And if the experiment doesn't work, well, look, you were on Twitter and you did that tweet thing.
You got to get the hashtag right, though, right?
Yeah, it's got to be DBI 209, right? Look at that, in real time. Is that okay? No, you're not going to do it? All right, that's fine, that's cool. Don't play. Okay, so I've got some of you, you all got smartphones. You can go to twitter.com, I think /mobile, and just DBI 209. There's the tone dictionary, right, of words I want you to use. And that would be great. And then at the end, we'll come back, and if the experiment works, fantastic. If it doesn't, well, hey, I hope you had a great session. I'll leave it up there for a few more minutes. Was lunch good? What'd you have? Chicken, pork, vegetables, vegans in the house? No? Okay. Oh, I got one. All right. Coconut cream pie? Wow, fantastic. We missed out, yeah. What were we doing?
We were setting up demos.
Oh, yeah, we're doing the demos. We got demos for you. We got 35 PowerPoint slides and 2 demos. Does that sound like a good use of our time? Oh, I got nothing. Like, no one went boo or that's amazing or sucks, terrible. Look, I'm using the words. You're tweeting. Fantastic.
Now they have an excuse if they're not paying attention. They're
That's
all
right.
now, so.
I guess we should get back to our regular scheduled programming.
Go for it.
All right. So, are we ready to start? The timer. You're here? That's fantastic. All right. So my name is Pez Javaheri. I'm a technical group product manager on the business intelligence team. And joining me today is...
Harain Oberoi. I'm a product manager on the Microsoft BI team.
And together, we're going to give you a lap around BI. So our goal is to kind of show you some of the things that we've been doing, some of the things that you can do using the platform. Hey, guys, lots of space. Come on up. Matt still needs friends in the row. There's no friends for Matt in his row.
The chances of getting prizes are higher if in the front row.
Yeah, I can throw
can't
stuff.
throw that far.
Yeah, like, look. Oh, that was pretty good. I'll try a gentler one. Yeah. Okay, I'll try another gentler one. All right.
It's working.
It is working. Gentler Page is working. Yeah, so we wanted to kind of give you through some of the things that you can do, help answer some questions, have some fun in the process, given that we're right after lunch. Kind of get the juices flowing, and then we'll take as many questions as we can as time permits.
Okay.
Do we want to ask them some questions?
Yeah, let's get, so as Pej mentioned, what we'll do is it's a lap around Microsoft BI, so we have 75 minutes, a lot of stuff to get through. So we'll try and make it interactive, we'll try and make it demo heavy. Before we jump in, want to do a little bit of level setting, get a sense for how familiar or unfamiliar people in the room with Microsoft BI. So first question, just show of hands, how many people are familiar with SQL Server BI? Everyone.
Okay, no prizes.
So that means analysis services, reporting services. How about integration services? Okay, master data services. Fewer hands, almost no hands, master data services. Okay.
One in the back.
How about SharePoint BI? Okay, fewer hands. Okay, so SharePoint BI means performance point services, Excel services, dashboards, scorecards, all that good stuff. How about
hey, hold on. Anyone using the KPI web parts? Take note, Stephen.
how about Excel? How about Power Pivot?
How many people like Power
so-
Pivot?
Yay,
Oh,
okay.
there you go.
Okay, so it gives us a good level set. I mean, and how about how many of you are actually using the whole breadth of the stack working together? So SharePoint, SQL, Power Pivot.
And are having fun.
How many people are just having fun, right?
You get one too.
Few. Okay, so
Here.
we'll do the whole point of
I
the
gotta
lap
hand them
round
out,
is to
man.
show the breadth of it end to end. Looks like a lot of people are familiar with SQL BI. We'll spend a little bit of
need to
time on
get you
reporting
something that goes
services, and we'll also spend time on SharePoint, and we'll spend time on Power Pivot. So before we jump in, just to set a little bit of context, this will be the breadth, the extent of the slides we have for the session, but this is just to set up context. So the idea is to give you a sense of where we're coming from and where we're headed. So if you think about what's been going on in the BI space for a while, so we've had traditional BI, which is a lot of what we've been doing for years, which is you've got us sitting in the IT department. It's about connecting to existing data, taking the existing data that we have, doing some sort of ETL on that information, building your data marts and cubes, and then eventually publishing that out to your end users. Right? That's historically what BI has been all about. More recently, what's been happening is the end users are saying, hey, I've got spreadsheets, I've now got these new specialized tools that these other companies are coming in and giving me, and you know what? I want access to that data directly. And they're finding ways to do it, whether sometimes it's actually coming through IT, and sometimes it's just going through their friends or just getting the information somehow. And the challenge with this is while it helps end users get their jobs done, you end up with issues around security, you end up with issues around compliance, you sometimes end up with issues on just, you've got the wrong data out there and people are making business decisions based off the wrong data. There's just no oversight into what's going on. And so, this question of how do you enable agility, because that's our job, is enable the business to be agile, that's what we do. And how do we actually do it in a way that allows us to not, for it not to be complete chaos in terms of, spread marts and that sort of thing. And so I want to tee that up in terms of some of the context of where this is going. You've got the traditional vendors. Obviously, we've been in this space for a while. You've got the Oracles, IBM, SAPs. You've got some of the newer startups that are making a lot of noise in the space that are basically saying, hey, don't worry about IT. Go directly, we'll give you the tools, get the data however you want, and you can get, you can solve your business problems really quickly, which might work for month one, but as that application grows over time, it becomes more of an issue. So how many people have seen this in your organizations, this kind of thing happen over and over again, right? And so the focus is, what we'll spend time on through the session is, we'll talk about the traditional stuff, and we'll give you, walk through all that stuff, and then we'll talk about the self-service stuff, and then we'll talk about how those two things actually come together. So before we jump into the demos, quick setup. A lot of times we still get the question is, what is Microsoft BI? You guys have different products. Why is this so confusing? And the answer is,
Yes, it is so confusing.
no, thanks, Pej. So there's an actual fundamental approach that we're taking here that's we think is different to what everyone else is doing. So we actually don't believe that BI is something that you have to buy and implement separate from the rest of your infrastructure. BI has to be part of your data platform. BI has to be part of your collaboration platform, BI has to be part of the end user's tools. So it's not a separate thing that you do, it's part of what people do on a day-to-day basis, and that's the reason why our roadmap, more specifically, is focused on how do we make BI part of the existing platforms we have versus this completely separate thing that you have to go build and implement and then attach to your applications or your custom solutions that you're building. And so what that looks like is, number one, make sure you have connectivity to all the data sources. We don't discriminate. It's not just SQL Server, Oracle, SAP, Microsoft Dynamics, custom apps, all that good stuff. Then you have the core set of platform services. So analysis services, a lot of you are familiar with. Reporting services, a lot of you are familiar with. More recently, we have master data services, and then integration services we've had for a while as well. And this is on SQL Server, right? This is the core platform. Then you have the end user tools. That's about search and dashboards. It's about scorecards. It's about Excel workbooks, and it's about Power Pivot apps. And that's, again, on SharePoint and Office. And that in a nutshell is Microsoft BI, right? So it's your SQL Server as your platform, with SharePoint and Office as the end tool, and the stuff you see on the left is the set of capabilities that makes up the platform. So I want to keep that in mind, and then as we walk through it, we'll walk through basically the different pieces of this. The only things we're not going to show as demo specifically here are integration services and master data services, mostly because we don't have enough time to get through everything. But we'll have a follow-up on. There's a lot of deep dive sessions on these things too, so we can go jump into that. So with that, let me hand off to Pej and start jumping into demo.
All right. So I've got, I'm a telco company. I'm a Contoso. And basically, as IT, we've put together a dashboard, and the whole purpose of the dashboard is to give everybody in the organization a starting point. This is the base. You want to get the base level of information that's happening. You go to the IT sanctioned dashboard created on behalf of the business. The business is excited because they get all their information in one place. From our point of view, we've hit a home run because people are adopting it and using it because it's in SharePoint. That's what happens in your orgs, right? All right, good. I don't want to be, it's not just a demo, it's real life, no. Anyway, so we've done some neat things because one of the things that, we deploy into is SharePoint. So we've built a little slider in SharePoint where you can flip through the scorecards and have a unique way of looking at all of the information instead of just a standard view. We've brought in operational metrics as a ticker symbol like you see on the stock exchanges. And we were able to do this because this is all within SharePoint as our platform. So not only is SharePoint the hub of where all the content can come together, but you can do some interesting development work within SharePoint. And honestly, this was a handful of JavaScript code that made this happen, and we created a custom web part. We've got some information here that's of interest, so I can look at my average revenue per user and average margin per user scorecard, and I'm not doing too bad. But I noticed that we're borderline on expenses and not benefiting from margins. Keep that in mind as we get to a later part of the demo. I can see here that I've got a high churn rate in the East, right? So this is continental United States, the East Coast, lots of people are leaving. In fact, if I come and look at my deactivations part, I can see that the East is just completely skewing my results. And what I might want to do is go, okay, so I've got it, the East, there's something going on, but is there issues in other areas, right? So I'm going to remove East, right, from the view so I can look at what's happening in my other regions. And I can see actually that in the West, there's a little bit of a tick up. So why don't we go in and jump in on the West, and by far use one of my favorite ways of looking at data is using the decomposition tree. And here what I'm going to do is just do some simple analysis. I'm just exploring my data at this point, right? So I'm going to drill into the West. I'm going to look at the various services that we've made available. As I drill in the services, I'm interested in the various product plans that people are signing up for. And the next thing I want to see is actually by age group, right? So let me go in and look at my subscribers, and I'm going to bring up age group. So here I can see for what services, what products am I selling, as well as what age groups are the ones that are primarily acquiring this. And once I've got that laid out, I can just flip back and forth, right, and take a look at what else is happening and what age groups are purchasing these plans and so on. So an interesting way for you to analyze your data. We hear a lot of good feedback on how people use the decomp tree. The next thing I've got in here, so I've done some interesting analysis. I noticed that deactivations are happening in the West as well, but not as severely as I thought. Here I've got a new subscribers report where by hovering over, let's say, California, I actually get a tooltip that tells me how many new subscribers are coming in for that state. I can look at Texas as well. and get an idea of that, so on. So a couple of other dashboards that we've created. I can go in and look at my churn management. So for this particular scenario, we're talking about churn. A lot of things are happening. Here I've got a specific churn scorecard. I got some other information here. You know, as IT, we may not always come up with the right way of looking at a report. So let me, as a user, I can come in here and switch it to a bar chart. And this is one of the nice things about Performance Point within SharePoint. You get to author once and deploy, and then the user can come in and interact with that data and change it to the way that they feel that they should be viewing it. I'm just going to change some filters because I'm not really interested in a bunch of these other items, but I am interested in voice and wireless. 2010.
Actually, Pej, it might be good for you to just orient folks on what are they looking at right now. So it's the SharePoint
Sure.
dashboard, what are the web parts, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so what we were looking at before, so this is all in SharePoint, right? So SharePoint's the hub. We store all of our information in SharePoint. In this view here, all right, and the dashboard I was showing at, we had created a custom view for our users because of their specific business requirements. So we had put a scorecard into a web part that you could flip through on some kind of mobile Slate device. And we had two reporting services reports. So we had a report here and a report here that are pulling data in from our operational system. This scorecard and this view over here is coming from Performance Point Services. And I've got the ticker here is we're pulling data from analysis services. Behind the scenes, the user doesn't really care where the data is coming from, but we have a combination of operational data as well as denormalized data, so it's in a data warehouse or it's in an analysis services environment, and we're surfacing it up. And more likely than not, actually, this dashboard is built off of 4 different analysis services cubes, but to the user, it just comes up as one single view, right? And that's the advantage points that we have.
Right, and I'll just make the point, as IT people, you know, our decision is basically, ultimately everything shows up on the dashboard. We just have to decide what web parts go on the dashboard, and the capabilities you use for the web parts depends on what you need the end users to do. So in this example, you know, because Pej needed to have a map view and a gauge view, those are visualizations we shipped in reporting services. Those are reporting services web parts. The KPIs, that's part of Performance Point services. That's a Performance Point web part. But again, to the end user, it doesn't matter, but we just have to make the decisions based on what the requirements are.
Right, good point. So back to this, I'm looking at the churn, and one of the things that I'm interested in as I filtered on voice and wireless is I'm really interested in my churn rate. So if I go down the current path, what's going to happen, right? Am I going to lose more or less customers, and by what service plan am I going to lose a lot on, right? So it looks like, you know, 3G not doing so well, landline, well, that might be expected, but I've got starting an uptick on DSL as well. And this is coming from our data mining technologies. Again, through analysis services, we created the view and we've published it within SharePoint. We've got a bunch of other things. Again, we've got a map on here. This is reporting services. This is churn rate by our geography. And we've made it drillable so that if I select on the specific item within the report, actually within the report that shows the map, it will drill in and give me a much more detailed report that I can then look and analyze. But it's contained within this window, right? Because we wanted to make sure the user has access to the information within the context of other items that are on the page. And these views that I'm showing you, this is the default view of what you can do within Performance Point Services. So for those of you who are familiar with it, you know that you use Dashboard Designer, you identify your data sources, and then you publish into SharePoint, and you articulate your layout within SharePoint. So I can create the views, I can publish it, I can create specific behaviors. So if I click on an element of a scorecard, other items are going to show up, and so on. And it's really nice because you can include things that you create right within Performance Point Services, or you can include things outside of Performance Point Services, like reporting services, like a Visio diagram, like unstructured text and documents that you may have in your SharePoint lists. You can bring all of them together to show how all of this data, both structured and unstructured, can be applied to the view that the users are asking for. So here we've got another view, and I'm actually looking at customer profitability and what age groups are the ones that are paying me more, I'm making a lot more money off of, and which ones are not. And a key area here is the 20 to 35 age group, which I no longer am a part of, FYI. You can tweak that. Right? But we'll get back to that part of the demo in a little bit.
You had me fooled. But
I had you. Was it the hair?
Yeah.
Thanks. There's also a lot of other things that we can do. Now, again, we're building this off of a number of different data sources, but for this next part, we've integrated Bing Maps. And so I have a lot of churn in the east, right? Looking at my data, I've come to a hypothesis that I think it may have to do with some of the towers that I rent and own. And I want to validate that. Now, tower information is stored inside of another database, right? And we have spatial information on that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a look at this. I'm going to take a look at all my cell towers across the continental United States. And I want to determine which one of them are properly working, or as I found out, which is an actual telco term, which of those have a high leakage. Not one laugh? Come on, I said high leakage in a demo. Okay.
Pej just wanted to say leakage.
I just needed to say it. So the high leakage towers are those that you may have experienced this if you're from like New York and others, where like as you travel from tower to tower, it drops your call. Now I'm not saying I'm not picking on a telco company here, but this is Contoso. But you get the idea that as you go from tower to tower, your calls drop. People get frustrated. What are they doing? They're jumping off plans. They're going to other plans, or worse, going to one of my competitors. So I've seen this, and the way we actually created this, if you guys are familiar with Codeplex, yes? Right? This is actually a Silverlight control within Codeplex that they've published that we brought in and we've integrated. And I actually have a different view here where, in this other demo that we have, we created for well info, right? So this is Contoso Energy, very close cousin of Contoso. But what we did is we actually integrated the Bing Maps right within our dashboard and allowed users so that if they wanted to get quick information, snapshots of what's happening with the wells, they could by hovering over the items, and you see that it populated the right-hand side with specific information. Again, coming from our transactional system through SharePoint, through its BDC connector, we were able to populate this. Okay. So I found out that in the east, I've got some towers that I need to take a look at. There's some issues that are happening there that I may want to dig in further, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in and end it on a network map, right? And this map, what this done is, again, from IT, we've consolidated a view that pushes out to users so they can get an up-to-date, just-in-time report of what's happening within the various towers, of those that we own and of those that we lease, what's taking place. So I think that's the wraparound, like what from IT we can do, from publishing dashboards, the importance of scorecards to help users navigate to where they need to spend their time and focus on. Identify some of the other technologies you can integrate within the SharePoint environment related to BI, as it provides a holistic view. And that goes back to what Herain said earlier, where it's, from a user's point of view, how many of them are going to go, I'm doing BI today? Well, how many of you do BI? How many of your users go, I do BI? What do? Procurement, marketing, put together campaigns. BI is just a natural part of what they're doing. And what we want to do is enable them to work and analyze the information, make the right decisions based on the data that they have, because making decisions based on data is a lot better than the other alternative, right? So we've put it in the places where we know people are going to work. Okay, so with that, let me flip over to you.
Okay, thanks, Pej. So looking at this report, so what Pej walked through is a lot of what we're calling the traditional BI stuff. You've got dashboards, you've got KPIs, you've got cubes under the covers, and you've got reports. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time on just the operational reporting side of it, because it's just such an important part of the stack. And then as we get towards the end of it, start to talk more about self-service and what that means and what are we doing around self-service. So before I jump in, I just want to get a sense. I know most hands go up actually on SQL Server BI. I want to drill in a little bit more. How many people are reporting services? Almost everyone. On 2008 R2? Wow, okay, that's great. On 2008? 2005? Still a few, okay. Okay, so that's great. So it's great to know that most of you are actually up on some of the latest and greatest. I want to touch on a few things. So now what you're looking at is a reporting services report. Some quick things to point out here. So this does use the map visualization that we shipped in the R2 release, as Pez showed before. There's many ways to integrate the map. You can integrate the map with Bing. You can integrate the map with just the visualizations that you get in reporting services. The main point is, if you haven't tried this or you're not, actually, how many people are using map in R2, or the R2 users are using the map visualization yet? Okay, not so many. If you haven't tried it, it's really something, I mean, think about ways you can enable the business with this, because basically what you're doing is you're taking spatial data that you're storing in the SQL Server spatial data type, and you're taking the visualization type, so that come part of the map visualization, you're merging those, and you're rendering them in interesting and cool ways. And so here you've got just a simple view of leased versus owned, the point Pej was making earlier, and these are just points on the map. But you can get into more interesting maps, which you'll see in a bit, which are about sort of routes from one place to the other, polygons that represent areas, and you can start to get really creative in how you represent information in more visual ways to help enable your end users to look at things. So a couple of things to kind of point out. So for those who haven't gone into reporting services, some things to look at as a standard part of operational reporting is being able to subscribe to the report updates, being able to export the reports into the different data types, Excel obviously being one of the most common ones, and then obviously being able to do some ad hoc reporting is, let me just zoom into that real quick. Do some ad.
It
No,
works
that's
on
on
this
your
one.
machine, not on
Yeah.
mine. Yeah, and actually I have it on the host,
Yeah.
not on the VM. But so report builder again is ad hoc reporting. We'll get into that a little bit later. Just to give you a little bit of a feel for the subscription. So again, the whole point of being able to enable end users to subscribe to a report is that they can say, hey, I want to get an update on this report, either put it on a file share or SharePoint document library, specify what format I want this on, HTML, PDF, Excel, etc. I can scroll down over here, actually say, do it on a custom schedule, or do it when a snapshot is created, or do it on a shared schedule. And essentially what you're doing is actually getting a snapshot of the report published on the SharePoint or document library, or sort of this thing over here, the Windows file share, based on specific parameters for the person that set them. So if I just want to look at a snapshot of the East versus someone else who wants to look at a snapshot of the West, separate snapshots for those individual people on a different schedule or a shared schedule, how you can do it. So again, just some richness of the functionality you can get with subscriptions over here. Now what I want to do is actually switch over to a different report. I want to show essentially a reporting services report that uses some of the Tablix capabilities that we shipped in the 2008 release and orient folks on that. So let me jump in here for a second. Now, here's a richer report. And the reason I want to show this report is, before we jump into the self-service stuff, we wanted to spend a little bit of time just making sure that we really talked about the richness of operational reporting. This is the bread and butter of what BI is today, and we want to make sure we spend some time on it. And so, in the 2008 release, we shipped what we called Tablix. So you take a table, you mix it up with a matrix, and it's Tablix. And you'll see in a second, the team had a lot of fun with naming in the 2008 release, because they came up with names like Tablix and some other names that I'll throw out in a second. But basically what you're looking at is dynamic rows, row groupings, dynamic column groupings, and then the ability to actually mix and match dynamic and static rows, columns, groups, doing all of that in one view, and then being able to embed specific types of chart elements or data elements or expressions within that view. So let me explain what some of those things are. So here you have my column group, so I have my year, and I can drill in, and there's actually a group hierarchy, so I can look at my sales by year and actually by quarter. And then in my rows, I have my sales manager, and I can drill in there as well. And then I can look at the specific salespeople that report to that manager by the quarter. And down at the detail level, what I've gone ahead and done is I've created a heat map of the numbers for the detail level view. So again, I'm taking using the flexibility that Tablix provides to create row and column groupings, creating visualizations within the detailed view. And then some other things to notice on the right-hand side. I actually have a spark line. So for the specific salesperson, I have a spark line that gives me a high-level view of how's this person doing over time, right? So again, aggregating a lot of information in a simple visualization so it's effective, so you can look at are people trending up, are people trending down. Some other things to look at. So I've got a grouping over here, that's my sales manager and salesperson. I've also got another grouping down here, that's my product category and subcategory. And so what you can do is start to, in the same report, create multiple groupings and hierarchies of groupings that we call trees in the same report. And so these two things don't have to be related, but I can show them in the same report. And that's, again, the powerful thing in TableX. So
it's a what? It's a tree?
it's a tree. So speaking of naming, one of the things as I was refreshing myself on all the things we did in the R2 release, or this was in the 2008 release, so it's like, okay, we called groups and group hierarchies, and we called them trees. And it turns out the team came up for a name for when you have multiple sets of trees in a report. And this is true. It's in the documentation, so someone can answer this question. We're going to give a T-shirt out for this. But if you have multiple sets of trees in a report, what's it called? Everyone knows this one.
So
Everyone
it was
knows this
new.
one.
It was
Give
new.
me that guy. That's the problem with talking about 2008 is everyone. So forest.
I heard something over here,
You know,
too.
we have TableX, we have trees, we have forests, and we'll get to some
I got
more
a
fun
bum arm.
ones coming too. So here you see a forest.
By the way, I told you it was a bad joke. I'm just saying,
It wasn't
for
a
the
bad
record.
joke. It's just everyone knew it. We'll go back to leakage then. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
So okay, so so you have multiple related groups, and the last point I want to point out here is you've got a mixture of dynamic and static columns, right? So here these columns are not going to really change over time. These are basically my subsidiaries: U.S., Great Britain, France, and so I can again mix and match all those things in a single report, and I can set expressions for subtotals or totals at the group level, at the subgroup level, and at the detail level. So again, if you mix and match all those combinations, you really get really flexible. A way to lay out reports for very specific types of requirements. Now, to switch gears a little bit, I want to show a slightly different report here. So this one, again, speaks to some of the visualization capabilities we shipped in R2. So here you've got the map view. Now, the last one showed points in time. This one shows routes. So this shows my average minutes departing from a specific airport. So in this case, it's Orlando. Over here, if I open this up, you can see it's got the parameters in there. So that's talking about Orlando. And then I have another view over here that shows a couple of things. I have spark lines, I have data bars, and I have my indicators. So all things that we shipped in the R2 release used here in a quick visual way. So I can look at this. I can eyeball this thing and say, hey, these three specific carriers, EV, FL, and WN, I'm not sure what they stand for, are the ones that have been frequently late departing. And then the data bar itself shows me what my average is, and then obviously these guys are way below average, 3 of these. So again, quick way to just visualize existing reports. Now there's a question, yeah.
Is there a quick way to change the relativity of the spark lines, like by the group? Is there, like, you get some that are 3,000 and some that are 100, they're unique to each line, you make it relative to all of the data, so like the one that has 4 kind of disappears and you see the big one?
So the relativity of the spark line. So I know the answer to that question in the charts.
He's talking about the range.
The range. So I know in the yeah. Oh, the range. So have the same range for all the spark lines at once. Does Prush here? Does Prush know the answer?
Yeah.
See the relative impact on that individual item. You want to tell if that item itself is trending up or down. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I basically want to see, well, I want to see a toggle. So
Yeah, so the question is, can you do it? And the short answer is, there's probably a way, but I think kind of defeats the purpose of the sparkline given the row. You'd probably want to create a different visualization that says, I want to look at it for every piece that I want to aggregate at a level and then look at that over time, right? Is that? If not, we can, we'll take that one.
So again, I think it goes back to the choice you have to make in terms of the visualization. But the sparkline, the primary objective of the sparkline is to show the aggregate over time, and it's about the trending. And so it's summarizing that in a single cell. So what I want to do was show you some of the different things we've released just around operational reporting, lots of investment there. Now I want to start shifting a little bit towards more of the ad hoc and then eventually get to self-service. So let's start the ad hoc scenario. So now, common scenario, you spend time building a nice looking report for your users. Users look at it, they're happy for a week, then realize they want to do something else and say, hey, can you now go tweak this thing for me? And now you have to decide, okay, how often do I want to go tweak reports for my users versus help them do some things for themselves? And so how do you start to enable them to help themselves, at least for the basic scenarios, so you're not in this constant rhythm of just tweaking reports? And so here's an example where I'm looking at this view, I scroll down. I'm looking at airline and sort of my delay rates by day of week. But this particular visualization isn't really that interesting. It's hard to actually look at this and say, or eyeball and say, hey, I really know what's going on here by airline. And so as a user, I'm going to come back to you and saying, hey, can you change the visualization for this thing for me? And so that's the kind of scenario that we want to enable users to do a bit more frequently. And so now we get into the ad hoc reporting scenario. So one way I can do this is through Report Builder. But before I jump in there, I want to show you one more thing. So this same user happens to look at another report. And this report has just some richer visualizations. And down here, he notices that, hey, this average minute late departing by airline, it's got these nice indicators. It doesn't have the numbers, but I can actually eyeball and see, hey, which airlines are doing well, which airlines are doing OK, and which ones are late fairly often. And they're like, hey, I want that view for my report. So I'm going to go back to my report, and I'm going to open this up in Report Builder. And for those who aren't using this as yet, so Report Builder is our ad hoc reporting tool. It basically allows you to take existing reports, make some basic changes on them, publish those back out to SharePoint or reporting services. And back in 2008, the team took a lot of effort to give it a much easier to use Office-like look and feel. And one of the big things that they added in the R2 release was this idea of report parts. So if this is what my report looks like in the design view, so these are the different, the chart and the specific matrix that you saw. This is the specific thing that I don't like. Because I saw that report part in a different report, I can actually go to Insert, Report Parts, and I can do a quick search. And I can look at the different components of the report that were published to the report part library. So the point is, as people build out their reports, the specific components of the report, so the charts, the tables, the matrices, the specific elements can be published in a shared repository, and so other people can pick those pieces up from a shared report and use it over time. And it's not just true for the visual elements of a report, it's actually true for data sets as well, and that's actually what gets really interesting. Because the minute you start to publish shared data sets, the shared data sets are actually, IT can start to control what the data sets are, and as you update the data sets, they automatically surface in the reports as well. And so now you start to really have a more shared view of how people organically create reports, break it out into subcomponents, publish those back out, and then reuse those subcomponents. So if I look at this, for example, that component we saw is this thing right here. So it's average minutes late, but it's a view not for my specific airline. It's specifically for the national average. So I want to create that view, and I'll put that up here. Maybe I'll put it up here. Actually, let's do it down here. And you notice that one of the things we added to Report Builder was the sort of ability to line up items.
Pixel perfect.
Pixel perfect. So the other thing is I'm going to take this expression and I'm going to add an indicator to it. So again, as easy as that. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to select it. It gives me options on what indicators do I want to add. I'll go ahead and click on the shapes. I'll do that. And so I've changed that expression. And then I can just go run it and see what that looks like in my runtime view. And so again, really easily, I've taken an existing report. I noticed something in another report that I liked. So I was easily able to go to my existing report, take that report part in, and actually modify my report to make those differences. So here, I now have for the specific airport. So this is the airline view specifically for Orlando. And then down here, I have for Orlando, so it looks like this only has Southwest going out of Orlando. Oh, I'm getting cut out over here. But I have both the report parts running in the same report through that. And I'm sure if I change this to Atlanta, I'll run it. This might take a bit of time, but it'll basically then take those same parameters, push those back out, and I'm updating those reports in real time. So just real quick, wanted to give you a sense of some of the ad hoc reporting capabilities in Report Builder, the report parts and the report part library, which is extremely helpful, especially if you want to start to manage the components of the reports that are being built by your users. And look at that. We have international flights. That one goes to Hawaii. I want to be on that one. And down here, again, the view specifically for Atlanta over there.
Anyone flying on American Eagle on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, expect a delay. I'm just saying.
Okay. So let's see. So before we hand off, then I want to go back to kind of the place we started, which was the network map. And essentially, look at this and say, okay, I'm an end user. I'm trying to make some decisions. I'm looking at a network map to understand, hey, why am I seeing leakage, or how is my specific over here? What's my usage rate looking like for specific regions? But I want to do more than that. I want to actually start to do some analysis, right? So I don't want to just get a report and play with the report. I want to actually get into the data, start doing some slicing and dicing, start to do some analysis. And so this is where the self-service scenario comes over, and you start to move from just simple reporting out or changing layout to actually doing some analysis on the data as well. So what I want to do is hand it back to Pej to talk a little bit more about what have we been doing around self-service analysis with Power Pivot and Excel and some of those pieces.
Great, thanks, Haren. Now, you talked a lot about what we've done with Report Builder 2008 R2, and before I get to the rest of the story, there's a lot you can do with Report Builder, right? You can give it to users who are comfortable in that environment, and they can mash up their own report based on the report parts that Haren had talked about. But you can also create some very sophisticated reports, right? You have pixel perfect capabilities. There's a lot of aggregations you can do. You can bring multiple data sources together. And what I like to do is I really like the map function. So what I've done is built a little app, right, in Report Builder that allows me to take a look at how we're doing with our sales staff and headcount distribution. And, I'm looking at it, and I can also move things around. So I'm going to go and take over that state with my sales reps. And I can move it in here and take over this sales rep with those states. So as you can see, there's a lot I can do with Report Builder. I may want to see what my competition is doing, so let me see what they do. Right? Has anyone seen this before? No?
This is what you've been doing in your spare time?
This is pretty much what I've been doing with my spare time. Report Builder Risk.
Very useful.
So there's a lot you can do with Report Builder. I invite you, if you want to see more creativity, though, I think this year we'll do Crescent. You all saw Crescent, right? Briefly? Did you like what you saw? Briefly? Okay. You can applaud. Okay, can I get back to my game?
What's Crescent?
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. But
you weren't at the keynote? All right.
Think rapid interactive visualization, data exploration. We'll get to that.
You should throw one more word in that one.
I only threw 4.
All right, so let me go where I am. Okay, so I'm back. So IT, we've created this report. It's fantastic. Users are loving it. It gives a lot of wealth of information. Back to our scenario. So at our main dashboard, there was 2 things, right? There was churn, right? And then there was a bunch of gauges. What were the gauges telling you? No, that was the game. The gauges were telling me average revenue per user and average margin per user. And what I'm going to do is I have this suspicion that I think the towers that we're leasing are, 1, they're not working very well, but 2, I think we're paying a lot for them, right? And they could be impacting our margins. So what I've got is inside of, let me go in here. Let me go here. So what I've got is my users have created a variety of reports, and Haren was talking about the self-service mechanism, right? So you guys said you know Power Pivot. You've integrated that with SharePoint, right? You all know the Power Pivot Gallery?
There were fewer hands on that.
Fewer hands on Power Pivot. So this is the Power Pivot Gallery. What we've done here is we've taken an Excel report with Power Pivot data, and we've published it into SharePoint, and we're using the Power Pivot Gallery to take a look at it. So as a user, I can come in, and I get some nice views. I can take a look at the report without even opening them, right? So this is powered through Excel services. I can come in, I can take a look at some other reports, and what I really want is this customer profitability report. And the other way I could have found this report is through search, right? I could have searched for it and it would have came up. But Power Pivot's kind of neat because it gives you a whole bunch of different ways that users like to visualize data. So with the gallery, we created a bunch of different views. So here you've got a really big view of the reports that you can flip through. This one happens to be a favorite of some folks where it's a carousel view. So I can come in here and I can flip through it. It's like I don't know. It's gratuitous use of Silverlight if you ask me, but But I got it in the demo, and you guys all saw it, so that's great. Anyway, you get the idea. So what I've got is go back to my scenario. I'm interested in customer profitability. I think we're paying a lot on a couple of our towers, right, most like the ones that we've leased. And if I go back to this report, what I want to do is actually consume this report as part of some data that I've got and mash it up. And I'm going to use Power Pivot. Right? So I've got the workbook open. I'm just going to bring it into my Power Pivot model. All right, so we'll wait for that to pop open. So, the scenario is I'm bringing data from a report via an Atom feed. I've got data that I've pulled in from pick your system of choice. There's a lot of different ways we can bring data into Power Pivot. Every one of the vendors via a connection, XML, data feed, as you're about to see, Azure Marketplace, etc. So I'm bringing in this report. Because it's a demo, it's very neatly organized. I have map data and I have tabular data, so I need the tabular data. I'm going to wait until that is downloaded into my model. And then once I've got this, what I need to do is now create a relationship. Now I, as a business user, would have a better idea of what those relationships are. So let me go in here and just do some quick renaming. All right, so I brought in, so this is the tabular data that I brought in at the bottom here. Zoom ain't working for me either. All right, so it's at the bottom, and what I want to do is join it to the rest of my model. So let me go ahead and create a relationship, and I'm actually going to join it on the geography key. All right, there we go. Now what I've done is how do I basically join this table that I brought in with the rest of my model. I've got a bunch of other relationships that I've already created, and I can take a look at them here. If you're interested in some of the things that we've done with Power Pivot v2, for one, we've turned this one into an entity diagram. So you can actually see what tables join with what other tables, what the relationships are. We got a lot of feedback that says this is nice, but a map would be better, right? So we've added that, so I encourage you to take a look at the Power Pivot v2 sessions. Let me go ahead, and what I want to do is actually create a calculation. One, I want to identify what is the third-party cost. Are you guys all familiar with DAX expressions? All right, you're about to see a DAX expression. It's very exciting, I know. All right, so basically what I'm doing is I'm going to do a calculation between my revenue from my subscriber invoices with the tabular data that I brought in, and I'm going to link it to the usage rate that we had. All right, so I've created this expression. It's now a part of my model. Oh, that was not good. Why did that not go? That's a bad expression. All right, well, we'll troubleshoot that in a second. No, it doesn't want to play. Okay, so I would have created a connection. I would have brought it in, and let me see if I can. No, that would be a sum. Let me modify this. Let me see if I can recover quickly. If not, we'll just move right along. No. There we go. See? Never doubt the demoer. All right. My relationship was the wrong way. That happens so much in life. All right. So this is our third-party cost. Okay. I can do some quick formatting in here if I so choose. So DAX is really, the DAX is like Excel-like expressions specific to helping users, with the power of Excel within the model, do some very unique calculations at the model level. And what we want to do is really help users who are familiar with Excel really be able to do some very interesting modeling, bring a variety of data sources together. The syntax, as I said, is very Excel-like, and we've seen a lot of new things that people are doing. One of the things that we're adding in V2 is a lot more time series intelligence, a lot more OLAP-like of calculations within the model to help people create hierarchies, which is another big ask people have had, and as well as be able to do more, as I said, time series. Okay, so let me go back to my model. Oh, sorry, my Excel document. If I click on the pivot, it will now launch my pivot well. Let me go to that view. Let me add third-party costs. So now I'm bringing that data into Excel. I'm taking a look at what that information means to me. I can see costs are a little bit high, but not too much. I'm missing one more calc. And this one, I'm going to do another calculation, but I'm going to do this at, just for myself, right? Because I don't want to have this part of the model. So what I'm going to do here, now I need parentheses, so catch me if I miss it. All right, let me do margin, and we'll... And you notice that it comes up with a little calculate button. Tells me it's only for here. Now I get my margin percentage point, and because I'm in Excel, I got all my Excel functions. So I can see here, other than a divide by zero error, that I've got high margins both in central and, low margins in central and in the south. That's interesting, but I'm also paying a lot of money in the west compared to the other regions, right? So east and south, I'm paying a lot. Let me focus in on a couple of the plans that I know as a business user what they mean. And I can now flag these using Excel. I'm going to highlight them. And I can share this out using what? SharePoint. So once I've done this, I can publish it out. Other people can now look at my data. I can write in my findings, update the workbook, et cetera. Other people can come in and manipulate that workbook or take a look at it, right? Because SharePoint provides all of the security features that allows people to either view reports, view and open, or just be able to take a snapshot. Now, I wanted to do a quick demo. What time do we end?
We have time.
We have time? Okay. So one thing I want to do is Harain here just bought a house. And I wish I had this data when I bought a house, right? But how many people here have tried SQL Azure Data Marketplace? Couple of you?
How many people have heard of SQL Azure Data Marketplace?
Even yeah, that was the right question. So what I've done here is what I can do is here's the pivot well. Like I can go in after a ton of different data sources, right? One of them is from Azure Data Marketplace.
Explain what Azure Data Marketplace is.
Azure Data Marketplace is an area where you can buy or sell data, right? Should we go take a look? All right, let's go. Okay. I've been told we're taking a look. All right? So you can go up to Azure Data Marketplace, and you can literally download data. Some you have to pay for. Other are free. And you can browse the various items, right? So if you're interested in transportation and navigation, there's a ton of data that's available. If you're interested in how you're going to be doing in your pool, there's a sports and games area, lots of stats, right? I want to see the MLB model if anyone creates it, right? But you can come in here and download data. So what I've done is I've come in here into the crime stats model.
Just to add, so then the core reason behind this is more and more we're seeing organizations asking for this because they're saying, I want to take the internal data that I have, I want to mash it up with some external data, and I want to see I want to compare results across the two. A good example was Mediterranean Shipping Company, a common example that we use. They use the internal data on how the ships are routed with the data that was available from the Port Authority of the US, and they were able to mash that up and actually create some interesting views. So that's becoming a more common scenario, and so it's something for you guys to think about too, is as you think about the business scenarios that you're solving for, are there situations where there's a need for external data sources to come in and actually look at relationships across those things?
Yeah, and these are things that you can provision, provide access to. You can have your users subscribe or have a central account that subscribes it to, and you can create some very unique applications. I think that's an excellent point. So for you, I'm creating this workbook, though I know you've seen it before. So basically all I'm going to do is I brought some data down, and this is me as a user. And one of the things I struggle with is when people go, oh, you're going to do personal BI. What does personal BI mean? It's all about like what is interesting to you, right? Like what are you, like we released something called Calendar Analytics. Did anyone hear of that? So you can, a couple of you, did you try it? Where'd you spend your time? Who? That's the person? Oh, no. Okay. Yeah. Oh, interesting. So you use that to go back to that person and go, hey, stop randomizing me. Interesting.
I should
we should do that.
I wonder who randomizes me.
It ain't me. Mine's Steve Tullis. Hey, Steve. So Calendar Analytics was this app that we released. It's basically an Excel Power Pivot app that basically links into Exchange, pulls in all your meeting information, and then tells you what you're doing with your time. Like it looks at your calendar. Now, it only works if you have categorized your calendar. If you're like me, I had a lot of meetings that were, I had all of my meetings that said uncategorized. So garbage in, garbage out. But if you tag your meetings and what you do, then this becomes very valuable for you. That's a great example of personal BI. So Hooray was telling me that he was buying a house, and I was like, well, what neighborhoods are you looking at? So it had just so happened in Azure Data Marketplace, I can go get some data. So let me go and show you what I showed Hooray. I'm going to bring in my year. Let's add states, and we'll put that as a vertical slicer. And these are all Excel 2010 features, and let's add city. So very simple data set, and I'm going to look at property crime because he was buying a new home. All right, so we both happen to live in Washington, and so what I'm going to do is just filter on Washington, the state, and then I'm going to focus in on the cities that he mentioned to me. So as I recall, you were looking at buying in Redmond. And was it Bellevue?
Kirkland.
All right, Bellevue.
Do Bellevue too.
And we'll do one more. Kirkland. All right. So very quickly and easily, and like you said before, I need to see data visually to get an understanding of what's happening. Just going to enter a very simple Spark line. All right. And because these are Spark lines in Excel, are very similar to those in other products where you can just, over time, you can take a look at the data. And because in Excel, they're just a cell, I can drag it, and there you go. I've got a population. I got a listing of what's happening versus the property crimes across the different cities. And I'm hoping that you went for Redmond, because Kirkland and Bellevue are on the rise.
We did.
You did. Did this data help you?
No, because you showed it to me after the
Yeah,
fact.
I know. I know. Do you know where I lived? Kirkland. I think that went up as soon as I came in. But now, again, so now, again, this is in Power Pivot. There's a lot of things I can do. This data is interesting. So you can see that property crime is up. But it's more, you can also come in here and go, well, what about as a percent of population, right? So if I do my calculation right. Oh. And we do. And there we go. All right? So I can get it as a percentage as well, and I go, you know what, it's actually not that bad. It's only a small percentage of the population that's within each one, and I can make this a little bit better. Right, so I can actually read it and turn it into percentage. But that was very quickly that I could go get the data, share it. Maybe other people are buying homes within my department that I want to share this out with. It gives you an idea of some of the things that you can do with Excel and Power Pivot. And it doesn't all have to be like against corporate systems. There's other data that's out there. Again, I'm looking for the MLB pool because I really need to get an idea of what's happening in baseball. But you get an idea of some of the things that you can do.
Are you going to talk about the management dashboard?
Yeah, I can talk about the management dashboard. So this is all fun and games, but what we really need to do is measure and manage, right? So as part of SharePoint and Power Pivot within SharePoint, we provide a management dashboard. And what the management dashboard does enables IT to see what's being published, who's using what, how often, what are the reports that are critical, et cetera. And you saw a little bit of what Amir Netz showed that using Crescent, which is our new set of fun and exciting visualizations that we're coming out with. But this is what ships today in the box within SharePoint Central Admin. So this is actually the server that we're hitting. And you can see over the time we had a variety of queries that were created. We added a lot more workbooks, so those are the bubbles that came up. So you can get an idea, like this on-time performance workbook that we published. A lot of people began using it. You can take a look at various different views. So average query response times are trivial for the server that we have it on. I'm proud to say it's a 64-core box that I was finally able to get.
Just real quick, how many people have deployed Power Pivot today and are using the management dashboard? One, okay. So the whole point of the management dashboard is to, as you enable your end users to do more and more with their spreadsheets, you want to have some level of oversight into what's going on with those spreadsheets. And so, for example, this view here says the bubble is an example of a Power Pivot app. The size of the bubble is how much data it is.
Yep.
And then it gives you a sense of who's using it, what are the queries against it, how many users. And the point being that as these things grow over time, if you end up with, most apps probably will kind of go into oblivion. No one's going to use them and they die away. Some of them, however, become really important apps. And as IT, you want to know what those apps are, because at some point, you're going to have to be able to provision the hardware and some of the pieces that go, and even the data sources that go into maintaining that application. And so this is an important piece of the transition from traditional BI to self-service, and it's actually a really important point that we're going to continue investing in long term.
Yeah, and that on the on-time performance one that people were using, you could see that it's like almost 300 megabytes in size. So it's a pretty healthy workbook. That's something that we may want to take over as IT to move it into a much more scalable environment, not just have it out on a document library somewhere. So that's a great point. Okay, let me switch back.
So we started out by talking about traditional versus self-service. And it's essentially, it's about striking that right balance. We're not of the opinion that you just want to go to the business and tell them, hey, don't worry about IT and just go do what you need to make it happen, because that just leads to more issues long term. It's about how do you enable end users to be agile, so find and access information, mash up, share and collaborate, do all those things, but enable that oversight on the IT side of things. So just to kind of recap real quick, we saw a lot of things. I know we walked through a lot of different demos, and so I just want to put it all in perspective. So we walked through sort of traditional BI in the context of a dashboard, and that was SharePoint. And the dashboard had different web parts, and some of those web parts were about scorecards, like through performance point services. Some of those were about specific reports or specific visualizations with reporting services, and some of those were just scorecards running off of analysis services cubes. We then started to talk more about self-service-like things. We talked about ad hoc reporting using Report Builder, using shared report libraries and pulling stuff together in web parts. And then Pej came in and said, okay, well, how about doing some more things around self-service analysis with Excel and with Power Pivot to actually allow people to pull data in, mash information up, and then start to do more create more interesting views in terms of slicing and dicing data from both internal and external data sources, as he showed you with the Azure Data Market. And so those are the sets of scenarios we walk through. This is how you should think about the core set of capabilities over time. We're not, especially on the front end, Excel for analysis, SharePoint for your dashboard and collaboration environment. Those are the big bets we're making. That's how to think about this. And then, of course, SQL Server as the core engine underneath to provide those services is where we're headed. So what I want to do next is start to tee up a little bit of what's coming in the future. And so the question came up earlier on what's Crescent, and so we'll show Crescent in a second. But before we show Crescent, I want to give you a sense of how the team is thinking about the roadmap at a high level. So really, if you think about a roadmap, there's two big bets that the team is making. And in a way, the big bets relate to those two sides of the balance that you saw. The first big bet is about what we call end-user experiences. And end-user experience is actually about building tools and providing scenarios that end users will enjoy using actually to drive adoption. I'll talk more about that. The Seamless platform is really about providing a platform that IT can deploy that allows end users to do those things in a way that they don't have to worry about the infrastructure that goes underneath. And actually a great example of a space in which I'd say we've gotten closer to a Seamless platform is around SharePoint and at least the web workload, so websites. 10 years ago, someone wanted a website. They'd put a list of requirements, go to IT, say, build me a website. We'd go build them a custom website. And then 2 weeks later, they'd have some changes. We have to go make those changes all over again. Today, someone wants a website. If it's a simple site for the team, I just go to SharePoint. I say new site. I add my people in. I don't even go to IT. And we moved from the business of building sites for everyone to actually provisioning infrastructure and making sure that that stuff is up and running. Now, there'll always be the high-end custom sites that you'll need custom work for, and that'll always be the case. But for the majority of web applications today internally, you'd use something like SharePoint. So BI needs to head in that direction. So for the majority of reports, where I just want to pull data from simple data sources, do mashups, create a simple view, I shouldn't have to go to IT. IT should just provision that information for me, and then I should be able to create those views by myself. So before we jump into the demo, I want to talk about end-user experiences a little bit. So we started out with these principles in Power Pivot. We said we need to focus on end-to-end scenarios. It's not about features. It's not about jamming as many features as you can into the tools. It's about the end-to-end scenarios. Do it in the natural place where tasks are done. So there was a big decision that we made to say, we're not going to create a new tool that people have to go use. We're going to do this in Excel. And the reason was that people, end users, know how to use Excel today, don't want to go learn some new tools, and so extend what they already know to do it in the natural place where they're done. And then the last piece was make it simple, fun, and addictive. And the simple, fun, and addictive was actually something that we debated. And we said, fun, what place does fun have in the workplace? What place does fun have in enterprise? And we had long debates about this. And I was actually on the other side of the coin saying, I don't know about this fun thing. I don't know what you guys are doing. And turns out fun is important. Fun is important for creativity. It's important for productivity. And most importantly, it's important for usage. If you have tools that are actually fun to use, people will actually use them, and you'll get adoption, versus you spend all this effort getting a tool out to your end users, and no one uses it because it's just hard to use. And so this, in terms of directionally where we're headed, fun to drive adoption, to have people actually enjoy what they're doing is where we're headed. And so that Crescent is starting to touch on some of those things. Power Pivot started with that, and Crescent continues to focus on that going down the line. So with that, we ready, Pesh?
Almost.
Almost.
But
So-
we can switch over.
We'll switch over? Okay.
Let's see, it's just booting up. So at the beginning of the session, I asked you to do what? Tweet. So, well, that's you. So we built this little, analytics for Twitter app using what? Power Pivot. All right, come back later. So, where's D. Sullivan? B. Sullivan, where are you? You're my negative tweeter,
over there,
man.
over there.
Why'd you negative tweet me? You know I know this. It's in context, but people in the internet don't have context. They believe everything they read. Thank you all for participating, including you, Mr. B. Sullivan. But you're also my top tweeter, so I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining.
So we give him a shirt.
We'll give him a shirt. Give him a shirt and a button.
And a button.
Yeah. So basically what I asked you to do is go tweet. And we built this little app using Power Pivot. And what I did is I just put a very simple search term. The reason there's no tweets by day is because we're in the moment right now. And basically, I can get a quick snapshot of what's happening. So, you all tweeted DBI. These are the top hashtags that are associated to DBI 209, which is my search term. These are all original tweets. A couple of people retweeted. And there's some positive, negative, and neutral tones. The people, I get more in-depth info about who the people are. Again, because we just did it for this one session, not a lot of top mentions. But if you do this tomorrow, my spreadsheet will look a lot better. And then I asked you to do tone. And the tone dictionary that we created was this. I asked you to use any one of these words, and that was my tone dictionary. So it wasn't very sophisticated, but I wanted to get a sense of the different types of tone reports we could do. So we had a lot of positive, thank you very much. We had a negative, and we had some neutral. Right? And I could, again, this is all within Excel. I've got some slicers. I can filter in on it by date and time, the originality and whatnot. And then my favorite tabs, because I can look at the details. So, for instance, I can look at the negative tweet. Horrible job on my part to not write down the keywords. Yes, it was. We're going to look at some of the positives, right? So, hey, cool, setting up excitement, awesome. We're going to release this app. I'm going to actually use this at the Power Hour. We're going to release this app like we did Canada Analytics because I figured everybody needs this. I don't understand why I have to burden IT just to get this info. We use the Twitter API. We're going to have some fun with it, so look for this to come out in a couple of weeks as soon as I'm back in Redmond. Let's go in and talk about Crescent. So you saw Crescent earlier today. Crescent is the new F word for us, right? It's fun. Where is your guys' minds? Come on. Right? It's all about having fun with data. And what I did is I clicked on schools, and I got a quick snapshot of what's happening. And similar to if you saw the keynote today, it's all about 1 or 2 clicks to enable people to experience their data. And what I was able to do is take a very simple table and make it into a calling card. And the data that I'm looking at is school information. And one of the things I'm interested in always when it comes to schools information is, well, how many people are getting caught, right, with bad behaviors? That's always fascinating for me, right? And I want to look at this by grade level, right? So I'm going to add behaviors, I'm going to add grade, and I'm, again, a very visual person, so let me take a look at that as a column. And I'm going to move this around to resize it so it fits my screen. The data is actually coming from the Denali Analysis Services, right? So you definitely want to go hear more about what's in Analysis Services for Denali, right? The data can come from a Power Pivot model or come from the new version of Analysis Services, right?
The common scenario we see here is people who are building Power Pivot models want to visualize that and do the layout in very specific ways, and so you can then use Crescent against a Power Pivot model to do that.
So you can do a lot within Excel, and then when you give that out, some people want to kind of do their own thing. This is all about enabling them to do that, have a visual ad hoc experience. Now, I've got grade level and behaviors. What's the next most interesting thing I should be looking at? Male or female? Well, I missed that one. What was that? Weapons. Okay, let's do male and female. Weapons. Who do you think gets in trouble and caught more?
That's 2 different statements.
Yes, it is. Hey, males, for both statements. So I can quickly get a snapshot of what's happening, right? And I think the other report that I want to do is, because we're all about BI, is I want to take a look at, let me see, I want to do behaviors. And I think I want to take a look at this over time. Clean jokes, please. It's a family affair. All right, and again, I'm going to visualize this.
So notice while Pesh is bringing that up, a lot of attention paid to how things look and how things render and the types of visualizations that get selected for specific types of data. And so that is really what Crescent is all about, is making the data tell a story visually so you can actually figure out what's going on with the information that you have.
Yeah. So it looks like I didn't have a lot of data prior to 2004-2005 school year, but since then, males are winning. This is the way I look at this. Males are winning, okay? Now, what's very interesting is all right, so we got a lot of males get caught, and we want to now compare this by school. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add schools to this, and we're going to create a new view called the small multiple view, so I can actually look at each individual school and for male and female and behaviors. And it's a little small, so let me blow that out. Right? So now I've got a view that shows me by school what's the relationship, and I can scroll through it. Whoa, PS 185, I think we had to clean the data up because that's a peak. You know, we want to protect in this case, the guilty. But, yeah, and then, let me do one more thing. Because it's going into a smaller view, what I actually want to do is change the layout a little bit, and I'm just going to go into a very simple 2x2 view. Right? So I've condensed that view down so it fits perfectly within my little space that I've given it. And this is all interactive, right? So I can filter on this item for males, of grade 9 and males, and you notice that it's now filtering the schools, and it's filtering the small multiple to give me exactly that specific view. And I can begin to see relationships, play with the data. And we wanted to give you a taste of what this is. So give you, one, go to the other sessions that are talking about Crescent, but to emphasize the point that, to what Herain said, there's a lot of things that IT does on the back end, and in order to get adoption of those systems, we want to enable users to have fun with that data, to get the insights that they need and provide IT with the oversight. So you can manage the systems, provision the environments, and enable users to be able to get access to the information that they need, both in a structured way, which is what we showed you with the dashboards, the scorecards, the reports, and also an unstructured way, right, through self-service business intelligence. And in R2, we introduced Power Pivot, which is all about self-service modeling, right, and analytics within the Excel, because Excel is obviously a place where a lot of people use and crunch numbers, but we all wanted to add self-service reporting, right, and we didn't want to just come out with something that wasn't fun, right? And when we test this with customers, the F word comes up a lot. I'm hoping you like the new F word that we're introducing as what we're investing in going forward as part of our technology stack.
Okay. There was a question back there. No.
More a comment. When you eventually get to my son on that list of kids getting in trouble, I want to listen.
The question, what comment was when you see my son, email me.
Okay.
Fair enough.
All right. Let's.
All right.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Is Project Progressive going to be a standalone? Is it going to be a plugin for something?
It's going to be shipped as part of SQL Server Denali, right? It's going to require SharePoint. Beyond that, we haven't figured out the details.
So it's not available to download or review or anything?
The next this will be available in the CTP that's coming out. And the CTP is coming out this summer. I can't give you a more definite date than that. But look, you can sign up for the CTP to get notified at the BI booth at the Pavilion, the Exhibition Center. Yep. Come in, scan your badge. We'll let you know as soon as the CTP is available for you to download. And this will be a part of it.
Yep. So stay tuned for the next Denali CTP. So that was, in a nutshell, a lap around Microsoft BI. As I mentioned, these are the core capabilities we walk through. We've listed out all the deeper dive sessions on many of this. Is not all of them. We have over 50 sessions. This is as much as I could cram into a slide without making the font too small. But definitely, these are ones you don't want to miss. Specifically, the one at the bottom, the BI Power Hour on Wednesday, 5 to 6:15. It's all demos, lots of fun. We'll have people from all the different teams coming in and doing just fun demos around this stuff. And so that's another way to get a good overview of all the different technologies. So thank you all. Thanks for the great questions. Thanks for the tweets. You guys have been great. Hopefully, you guys have a great Tech Ed. Thanks.